Viewed from space, Egypt looks like a fair-sized country. After all, it has over 1 million square kilometers, about the size of Ontario. However, what is not clear from up here is that most of it is covered with sand. If it weren't for the Nile River, it would be a huge desert. The Nile River is the backbone of Egypt. At 6,600 kilometers, it is the longest river in the world. The capital of Egypt is Cairo, where about 12 million people live in the metro area. This is where our adventure begins. We were first greeted at the Cairo airport and embarked on a minibus owned by Summit Tours. We were then driven across town to our hotel.
If we get hungry, we'll let you know. I love all the minarets. They're so pretty.
The Cairo is named about the 1,000 mirrors.
Oh.
The city of Moscow. Quarry.
Isn't that fun? I love looking at the little park there. Wow, look at those carts, Louise. Oh, beautiful.
The carrots?
Yeah. Look at how nice these are. Isn't that nice? The nice carrots. I put my sunglasses in my suitcase. I'm thinking I was going to need them. But I wish I had it.
As we approached our destination, we could see the pyramids materializing on the horizon.
Chili on Apple Tree Lane with DC.
Yeah.
See the
I still use your recipe for chili.
Okay, welcome to the hotel. This is what the
So, what have we decided? One tip at the end?
Yeah.
When we reached our room and walked out onto the back porch, there it was, the biggest and most magnificent pyramid in the world, the Pyramid of Khufu, built in 2500 BC. The next morning, we were joined by our trio of guardian angels. First, there was our driver, Sabri. Second, there was our tour director for Egypt, Imad. And third, there was our tour guide for the city of Cairo, Ali.
Before this year, before 3200 BC, what is the south? I will show you now the map of Egypt. Our borders is, to the north is the Mediterranean Sea, to the south is Sudan, to the east is the Red Sea and Sinai Desert, to the west is Libya. The most important element here in this map is the River Nile. The River Nile is coming from Ethiopia, from Lake of Victoria, until arriving Cairo, the capital of Egypt. It will be divided into two branches, one to the east, one to the west.
After receiving a brief overview from our guide, we proceed to the first site of the day.
Yeah, at first no, actually we have two entrances. We have this is actual entrance up to the upper.
And Egypt must feel the same way. They went to the Louvre.
So I should collect the camera. Give me the camera.
We don't have any. Yeah.
Yes, I got them. Police on camels. Those are for the wives and
Daughters.
wives and daughters.
Mother's wife.
Louis, give me a running commentary here. Where do you think Louise is going right now?
She promises not to buy any gadgets, but I bet you.
Can she resist?
I don't know.
Can she resist the gadgets? Let's see. What if they're on sale?
Maybe she's just getting a feel of it so that she can know how to bargain later on.
Ah, that's it. Okay.
To take a movie of the guy thinking the movie.
And I thought, leg. We're up to the 20th.
Once we had finished visiting ancient structures on the Giza Plateau, our crew brought us to witness the art of making papyrus paper.
Also the sugar can too tough and too hard and full of sugar. And then we use the roller pen and you can see lots of water comes out, as you see.
Oh, lots of water.
Yeah.
We were then treated to a typical Egyptian lunch called koshari. It was very yummy. That afternoon, we went outside the city of Cairo to visit much older structures in Saqqara and Memphis. To close off our second day in style, we attended a variety show on a Cairo riverboat. by a visit to the Cairo Museum. It is a very impressive place, with hundreds of thousands of artifacts inside. Among the best examples of amazing workmanship was the King Tut collection. The rest of the day was spent doing a lot of walking. One of the highlights was the citadel of Muhammad Ali, which contains the biggest mosque in Egypt.
The shoes must come off?
Yep.
Okay.
And you carry the soles of your shoes together.
Okay.
So you went to Court Square?
Yes.
You know, it's very famous over there.
Yes.
Over there,
There's a big obelisk.
obelisk, Egyptian obelisk, okay?
Yeah.
Allahu Akbar! Super.
Nice, nice.
That is beautiful. That
Very
goes in the
good.
I
heart.
can meet again, you know? It's good to have a seat here, yeah?
Another highlight that day was El Fishawi, the oldest coffee shop in Cairo.
كله تمام؟
طبعا نجيب محفوظ يخش حضرتك الاول تشرح لهم الممثلين الناس ديت تنجي طريقهم.
On our last night in Cairo, we attended a sound and light show at the Giza Plateau. Our next destination was the Abu Simbel in the deep south near the Sudan border. Except for the food, the Seti Hotel was a very nice place to stay. So we took advantage of it. The next morning, we boarded our first cruise ship called the Kasir Ibrim.
I just want to show the bathroom. The bed's nice and big. 2 single beds side by side. Part of all is that. Yes, we have a balcony. Whoa, look at this.
Once established in our new abode, we had lunch and then left for our first visit, the temples of Ramses and Nefertari. One of the most astonishing facts about these temples is that in the 1960s, they were taken apart and relocated.
Beneath the rising waters of Lake Nasser. The new lake has formed because of the construction of the Aswan High Dam 140 miles downstream. Now, contractors from 5 nations are in a race against the clock to deconstruct the temples inside and out and move them piece by massive piece to higher ground. First, the engineers cut the temples into movable blocks and transport them to a new site, 200 feet higher and 600 feet further inland. There, the blocks are restacked against and within 2 artificial mountains of reinforced cement. After 4 years of steady labor and 3,200 years in existence, the temples of Abu Simbel have a new home. The statues of Ramses outside the Great Temple stand 69 feet tall, making them the largest that had ever been sculpted in Egypt. Inside, an entire temple complex is carved out within one massive rock. The first atrium alone has 8 more towering statues of the pharaoh. Beyond that is a series of other rooms, a second atrium, a sanctuary, and smaller side chambers that may have served as storerooms for sacred offerings. The heart of the temple is its sanctuary, which lies more than 200 feet inside the mountain. Within it are 4 statues of Egypt's mightiest gods: Ptah, the creator; Amun, the supreme god; Ramses, the living god; and Ra-Harakti, the sun god. Twice a year, on the 22nd of February and October, the rays of the rising sun strike the faces of the 3 gods associated with it: Ramses, Ra-Harakti, and Amun. Next door to the great temple stands the one carved out in honor of Ramses' most beloved queen, Nefertari. While the pharaoh could have any woman he laid eyes on, his heart belonged only to her.
Nefertari is absolutely beautiful in the representations that we have of her. She must have been really spectacular, and in fact, there are inscriptions that say that she was the woman by whom the north wind blows.
On her temple's exterior facade, there are 6 statues, 4 of Ramses and 2 of Nefertari, each standing 33 feet tall. This is the oldest temple in Egypt, where the queen's statues stand as tall as the king's, underscoring her uncommon significance.
Just as Ramses II is deified in his temple, Nefertari is also deified in her own. Nefertari is actually shown as the goddess Hathor, so she becomes a divinity just like her husband.
During the reign of Ramses the Great, the temples at Abu Simbel stood as an imposing reminder to northern-bound travelers that a powerful empire lay just over the horizon.
Early the next morning, we set sail north on Lake Nasser.
It's 7:30 in the morning. We slept here overnight. Now we're taking off to go and visit the next temple.
The next temple was the Qasr Ibrim, but we had to do it from the sun deck because entrance on the site was not permitted. The next three temples required a boat ride to shore. Hey Louis, t'as la patelette ouverte? In the following couple of days, we visited a number of sites, and we began to look forward to a period of rest. Once we reached the high dam at Aswan, the ship's guide gave us his final tour, the Temple of Kalabsha.
Those are the tribes of Egypt. You have here the beard, and also there is the breast over here. Yes. All the usually are depicted in the same way. So it's pronounced head, which is something like that. Yeah, it was 5 kilometers close to Kalabsha Temple. Noon will cast no shades inside the temple. So he informed the scholar in Alexandria, his name is Eratosthenes, and Eratosthenes, when he knew that, he sent a man from Alexandria to Aswan on foot to measure the distance between Aswan and Alexandria. Knowing the distance of Aswan, Alexandria, and the angle of the sun, which was vertical here, and the angle of the sun in Alexandria, he was able to calculate the circumference of Earth, though he was mistaken in a few 100 kilometers. But it's strange.
That's not bad at all.
It's strange to know in the Greek period of Egypt, they believed that Earth was sphere, but in the Middle Ages it was flat.
Yes.
At one point, Louis thought he saw something he had seen before.
I thought it would get.
Finally, it was time to go to our hotel. The Old Cataract Hotel is the Grande Dame of Egypt. It has been sought after by royalty and by many famous people since the day it opened in 1899. The 3 days we spent there were very relaxing. We went for walks in the city, and among other things, we visited a Catholic Coptic church filled with Greek scriptures.
Take that from my mom.
We also took a short boat trip to visit a Nubian village. Most of all, we spent time on the terrace and back of the hotel, drinking beer and enjoying the sights and sounds.
I'm wearing black jersey pants. You've seen them on me. With I have a beige shell top with a black that slopes over.
Our second cruise ship, the Veuillez, was as luxurious as the first one, but in a different way. It is known as the Jewel of the Nile. Before leaving Aswan, our guide from the ship took us on a felucca ride to see the botanical garden.
You are criticizing him.
He is what?
He has a problem.
No, he knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing, yes. What is our sailor's name?
That's Rais. Goma. Goma means Friday, by the way.
Like
Friday.
Okay, Goma.
And that's why the Nubians, long time ago, the people who live here, thousands of years ago, they invented this sailboat made out of wood with a sail, because most of the other boats to get some money, even if the lady stays home, she is working and goes thinking it's 50 pounds.
Yeah, I thought it's 50 pounds and
You need more city for dollar?
Yeah. Puis à peu près, on...
That's the problem.
You choose Aswan to be like a winter resort for themselves. Aga Khan, last crocodile in the Nile was shot 1964.
64.
Yes. And then all of the crocodiles are, you have seen them.
But on the other side.
No, we didn't.
Small one.
Ah, Club Med.
He's going yippee-ki-yay. Oh, beautiful gardens. And I said, who owns that? It must be a very rich Egyptian.
Yes, he is.
English?
English?
As we headed back to our ship, we got a final glimpse of the terrace in the back of the old Cataract Hotel.
They sent some garrison, some army to the extreme south, to the west of the Nubian area. Some was government,
The next day, after a busy morning of visits, we finally set sail down the Nile.
There's a donkey. The donkey and the fawn. And there's a, what do you call those sailboats again? What do you call the sailboats? Felucca. Here comes the felucca. Felucca. Hey, this is nice, eh?
Yes, it is very nice. That's what we want to enjoy.
Exactly. See the shores going by. Perfect.
Oh yeah, the donkey with the little boy.
There's a guy taking a bath
No.
in the water.
The shoreline made it seem like we were going back thousands of years, but once in a while, we would be jarred back to reality. It's a good thing we got some rest, because there was still lots to do that day. For instance, there was the temple of Sobek in Komombo.
Qu'au, or the Valley of the Gold. We are not so far from the gold mines in the land of Nubia, and it's about 55 kilometers away south, and that's why this place was quite important place for spending an overnight, probably because it was very common to see crocodiles here. There are many things in the common book we will not be talking about today.
They revered the crocodile, and they actually mummified them and put them in sarcophagus.
That evening, we were treated to a special galabia costume party. We decided to go in full costume. There was a lot of dancing and a lot of looking going on. Practically every day, the ship's staff would give us a demonstration of their creative talent. It's interesting to note that they were all men. After an overnight and a short temple visit in Edfu, we continued our route down the Nile. One of the highlights at this point is when we crossed through the lock at Esna.
They sure have a lot of egrets here.
Just before we were lowered down to the next level, another ship joined us in the lock. When we woke up early the next morning in the port of Luxor, we could see across the river a group of colorful balloons taking off from the valley floor. Our first order of the day was to visit the temple of Habu, built by Ramses III in 1150 BC.
In palaces, most of the kings they lived in palaces.
You got your ticket, Peter? The security has to be tight here.
Appreciated even more because Edfu was done in 180 years. Temple of Komombo was done in 250 years, but this was all done for and by one man in his lifetime. That was all finished in about 35 years, a lifetime of one person. So what was finished in that very short time is a miracle. Look at the way this king is doing some sport. He's taking some of his children and he's going to the delta with the very thick marshes. You see the beauty of those?
Yes.
And he is hunting. You see all the cows, wild buffaloes and bulls are falling down.
These things here. Can you imagine when those colors were bright?
While the man himself was 173 centimeters.
Now I can see why you
And you can feel that when you look at the limestone was
Yeah. Yeah.
between the two stones.
And sometimes we do see things within Egyptian influence.
Spiral.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
You have to make me friendly with Louise. So that she can remember this when she views the video, that we were friendly all the time. Even if we had a few discussions, we were friendly all the time.
Okay. Really friends.
Yeah.
And by the way, we expect all what we have found to be only 30% of what's still underneath. Can you imagine that? We expect 70% of the Egyptian treasures to be still hidden. So that's why we're never doing excavations and explore things.
We were told by our guide that exposing us to the gauntlet of vendors was a measure imposed by the government to help sustain the economy.
La shukran. La shukran. No thank you.
Maybe come back.
No thank you. La shukran. Canada dry.
Welcome. Welcome. I know you. You're school with me. You're my brother.
Although spectacular in concept and age, the Valley of the Queens did not have many tombs to visit. The Valley of the Kings, however, made up for it. Annette and I spent most of our time visiting the tomb of King Tut. It was discovered by Howard Carter in 1922 and contained a spectacular amount of gold-covered artifacts. Most of those are now exposed in the Cairo Museum, but it was worth going in the tomb because of its historical significance. Our last afternoon on the ship was leisurely and totally enjoyable.
The sun is going down, and on the Nile, the sunsets are absolutely fabulous. The only thing is you have to catch them just in time because it goes down very quickly. First thing you know, the sun's gone.
Our next temple was the Temple of Karnak, the biggest in the world at 60 acres.
Visit the whole site of Karnak in one day or even 1 week. So we are going to concentrate on the heart of the temple of Karnak, which is the temple dedicated to the god Amun-Ra. Huge open court, which is going to be the public area. So all the people are supposed to come in here at least once per year to pray, to present their offerings to the god, and they are not allowed to go inside in the depth of the temple.
If I walk around the scarab 3 times clockwise, my wish will come true. And for women that have wishes to do with love and men, if they go 7 times counterclockwise, the dream will come true. But I'm going to go 3 times clockwise, hoping the plane won't crash.
Let's say 10 o'clock.
1. 10
We'll see you again at 10.
3. I've done it. I'm protected. 1, 2,
No, that's two.
Oh, you've already done twice.
That's a two, that's a
Three.
Our last temple, the Temple of Luxor, was equally impressive.
Go walk. But because the god Amun, Iman or Amun in the ancient Egyptian language, supposed to mean the hidden one. So no one to look for a French gift instead. And this French gift was clock, which never worked from the first moment it arrived. How high is that? The people have to climb up every time they go to pray to reach the door? No. It was that height, the whole thing. And this temple was the last in Luxor to be discovered and to remove all the sand and mud away. Until the 20th of the 20th century, the whole thing was covered.
As we came back to collect our luggage from the ship, a group of us lined up on the gangplank in a farewell gesture.